only one sliver of conservative Republicans or whatnot. It wasn't indicative of the party as a whole.
Right.
But there was a good 20% of the party that splintered off, and they were like, "This is what we want, and we're not yielding."
Yeah, but they were still under the guise of the Republican Party. Okay, and that's important, I think, to characterize, because if you're thinking about something where maybe Bernie Sanders goes this way. Right, and takes his contingent with him under an independent heading, and the Democratic Party through the influence of Hillary Clinton and Perez kind of goes this way. I think it's kind of dangerous in terms of what that would do to the Democratic Party, because I really believe that to regain what we need to get back. From a progressive standpoint, needs to be done via the Democratic Party. So I guess I'd be kind of worried if there was that kind of a splinter movement.
With the Tea Party, though, it was still under the Republican umbrella, but at the same time, that's the reason why John Boehner retired. He retired from Congress. He was the most powerful person in Congress. And he retired because he was sick of the Tea Party blocking stuff all the time. And there was a lot of times where Republicans were, on very few select issues, were willing to compromise with Obama to get certain pieces of legislation passed because they were going to get, 60, 70, 80% of what they wanted. And then there was 20% where they're just oh, we'll just eat it. And then the Tea Party was we will never support that, and they just dug in their heels, so they sabotaged a lot of stuff. And the Republicans in general were already hostile towards Obama and weren't trying to let him pass legislation, wanted him to be a one-termer. Mm-hmm. And then the Tea Party came to power. It was even more difficult, and then that's the reason why we have Paul Ryan now, because of that. And maybe from the liberal standpoint, there's going to be an inter-party struggle where certain Democrats that have kind of become entrenched in certain places are going to go. And I think regardless of if they've got a D or an R to their name, that job was not meant for you to be there for 20, 30, 40 years. Yeah, exactly. And they lose touch with the people and with the average person and families going through.
Right.
And some of those leaders, Harry Reid from Nevada retiring this past year, and we have Chuck Schumer now as the Democratic leader in the Senate. It was good that Harry Reid, he'd been in there since 2002 or 4, I think, and so, but as the leader, but Chuck Schumer's been in the Senate for, I don't know, 3 decades or something like that, so it's not young new blood going in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much the old stalwart leadership in that regard.
But also, Chuck Schumer supported Keith Ellison, who was the more liberal of the two chairman candidates.
I would say, what if the more moderate Republicans and the people who
where are these moderate Republicans of which you speak?
Well, I know.
I thought they died out in 1968.
I know. Do they exist? That's a good point. Well, let's say if they are out there, the more moderate Republicans, if they do exist, I have yet to find one. Maybe the guy, the representative from California, who's wanting to have a independent council take up the Russia investigation. That's just one. But anyway, maybe there's more. Maybe exactly. Yeah,
Daniel Issa.
Maybe there's more of him out there.
And he grilled Clinton too. But
right. But let's say
I will give him points for
more people that kind of maybe backlash against Trump. Right. Come over here from the Republicans, and those people who on the Democratic side, kind of like myself, who reject the false progressiveness, as I see it, that is the Democratic Party now. Or can be construed as such.
Running a little bit too fast, too soon with certain issues.
Well, you see what I'm saying? But maybe those people come together, and maybe it's kind of good in the sense that it could be really what we'll have as a valid third party.
Yeah. I think one of the things that the Democratic Party runs into and what cost them this past election is they go and divide themselves into too many categories. and you have all these like specialty categories, whereas before in decades past the Democratic Party was seen more as the party of the middle class, and what the middle class was doing, there were definitely social movements that they subscribed to, and then you have the flip-flop from the 60s into the 70s with like some Southern Democrats when civil rights came about, they flipped to Republicans and have been ever since. And so you have to know that history. But what are we going to see in the future rolling forward as far as what the actual platform is going to be in 2018 and 2020 with Democrats? And I think when you go and divide the left into a whole bunch of different subgroups, then you might end up losing, if you're not focusing on the middle class. Jobs and healthcare and security are really big issues. Then you might lose what cost Hillary the election, and more than any other demographic, is that she lost middle class white women.
Yeah, I heard a good analogy on that in that terms of Hillary Clinton flying from New York to L.A. and forgetting everything in between.
The flyover states.
Yeah.
She didn't go to Wisconsin once, and she lost there.
Well, she was focusing on the black vote a lot.
And they said also like moderate Republicans who weren't going to vote for her anyway.
Right.
And she won, I think what I read was 96% of the black women's vote. She won that. So, but she lost.
That's what she, like a lot of her focus was on that. And so then that's why she lost a lot of them other demographics.
Right. Is because she kind of negated a whole, and even the Trump supporters,
I think it was 84%
come out
for
and
Latinos.
say, hey, look at all these people in the Midwest and everything in these towns that that are really beat down right now that you didn't even try to pander to.
And Trump's populism message, like, definitely resounded with them.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when we start talking about imposing tariffs on companies that move abroad and moving manufacturing back to the U.S. And speaking out against NAFTA and TPP, which Clinton was for because all her Wall Street buddies and friends in Congress were for, Obama was for, and then like she started taking heat for that because Trump was so outspoken against it.
She refused to take a stance on it. She refused to say, she's like, oh, I don't know, we're going to have to look into it. That's what I remember hearing, was like, oh, we're going to have to look into it. And Trump just said, no, fuck it. And everyone's like, because Bernie came out and said, no, fuck it.
Right. To me, like, TPP was toxic because all you have to do is come out and say it's NAFTA for Asia. 3 words, and instantly, you don't have to be a genius. You can be anywhere in the country, especially if you're in the Midwest, and you lost your job, or your dad lost your job, and you had hard times growing up, and you remember that because the plant closed. As soon as somebody says NAFTA for Asia, it's just instantly you're like, no. Under any circumstances, no. And like I was saying before, definitely we need to be trading with other countries, but why can't we just go and negotiate individual or maybe like trilateral trade pacts with countries? Maybe you have 3 countries, they share the same like ocean channel outlet, each one of them owns like a piece of it, their international water or their national waters before it becomes the international waters or something. So you go and negotiate different things with them and trade with them. We don't need like a one-size-fits-all trade pact with 20 different countries in Asia when they have, a lot of those countries have basically like slave labor or sweatshops where they're paying people, 50 cents a day and things like that. The American worker can never compete with those sort of things.
That's where the Jordan factory is. Jordan's making a killing off of slave labor.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been called out on it multiple times.
Nike they've been doing that for decades.
Where do you think Jordan got it from?
But yeah, exactly. But my thing is like, as a company, you want to make money and everything, but making your merchandise and factories like that promote human suffering, that like how that doesn't get to you, but also, excuse me, when it comes to a lot of Nike shoes, especially Jordans and the like, when you're charging, $150, $200, $250 a shoe, and you've been doing that for like decades, like it doesn't cost that much to produce that shoe. That shoe costs, a few dollars to produce.
If that.
And it's like, if you use American labor, if you use their labor, it adds on, like another like $1.50 in labor. But if it used American labor, it would cost $25 to produce the shoe. You're selling it for $200. Like $175 in profit's not enough. You got to have like $192 in profit. You can't forgo just a little bit.
Corporate greed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, A, you're not making stuff in sweatshops, but B, you can make it in America and provide Americans with jobs.
Even in America, though, that's still a problem. Like, you can look at Papa John's.
The quarter?
Yeah,
you should explain that. That's really powerful.
I think it was a dime, actually, where he didn't want to pay his employees health insurance and
the Affordable Care Act. He was outspoken against that,
right?
Because he was going to have to add the price per pizza.
But it was only like a dime per pizza, and he was all against it, saying, "I don't want to do that." And you couldn't afford a dime per. Like, who's not going to pay a dime extra per pizza?
I think you just offer an option like ordering online. Do you have a soul and donate one dime so employees can go to the doctor? You'd be like, I'm already in this thing for $22. What's a dime?
So, just big businesses in general are just penny pinching to the max.
Speaking of Papa John's, like now he's got the new commercials, and the whole thing is pizza is family, and it's like him and the workers and stuff like that. But it's like I see that every time, and I'm like, it's family, but you didn't want to charge a dime for pizza so family could go to the doctor.
Pizza,
like what's
family?
Up with that?
Hey.
I have yet to see that ad, but I think that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, they've got two new commercials now.
Really?
Where it's like, we're family, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah.
Because now there's a face and a person attached to your fucking corporate monstrosity, and you have to answer for it.
Yeah.
Right? Is that not what's happening?
Yeah, and they definitely have a different, a fantastic marketing department, and like the partnership between them and the NFL, that's super huge. But
dude,
not only getting to use the NFL's logo and advertise on Sunday with them, but yeah, exactly. You have like one of the most recognizable stars of the NFL on your ads for years.
Yeah.
Yep. Gotta love that family. You just can't pay a dime for their insurance.
Yeah, that's great. Then try to save face by a bunch of bullshit propaganda advertising.
But he is at a point now where he and his children and his grandchildren can never spend the fortune he has amassed. Unless they just do some really dumb, like MC Hammer stuff.
Mm-hmm. MC Hammer stuff?
Yeah. Or like 30 for 30 broke, all the different athletes that lost all their money investing like in real estate and a sure thing, or was it Kurt Schillings and the video game company? And he lost like upwards of $100 million.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like Papa John and his descendants should be set for all of their lifetimes. So at one point do you become more of like a philanthropist and like not necessarily like giving all your company's money away, but it's you're not trying to like change society, but it's
don't you have to give a certain amount of money away at a certain point for tax stuff?
Well, not if that new tax deduction goes through where there's no inheritance tax.
But you don't have to. It
makes sense.
You're right. But that don't mean he has to do it in that way.
No, it doesn't have to. But wouldn't you say, okay, rather than this go to the federal government, I'm going to take this chunk of money and give it to us. So you see what I'm saying? So doesn't he isn't he not necessarily obligated to? But it's
like I say, he can do it kind of in the way he wants. I'm
sure with his business though, he's got so many CPAs and tax attorneys and lawyers on retainer where he's getting every single deduction where his taxes are as low as they could possibly be across the board.
I actually hung out with Papa John for like a whole day. So he was a cool little guy, but I mean that don't change the facts. But I mean he was a cool guy, but
he's a businessman first.
But obviously, even still being a businessman, you can still have a soul.
That's what I'm saying. He's a businessman first. His soul comes second.
How many employees does he have to where he couldn't a dime of pizza? I mean,
but isn't all that franchise shit? Is a Papa John's
There's
is that not franchised?
Yeah, there's franchises, but he's kind of like McDonald's, where he has supreme control over everything that's done in the franchisee's store. So it's like McDonald's. If you decide like, oh, we're going to start selling kebabs, like they're going to roll in and be like, oh no, you're not under the Golden Arches logo. We do burgers and fries here. Yeah. So you really can't, if you want to like, oh, we're going to put mango on a pizza, like, that's not one of Papa's favorites.
Yeah.
But so he